This fall looks to provide some promise in terms of adequate moisture to grow wheat pasture. Cow-calf producers can utilize wheat pasture as a protein supplement once we get an adequate amount of forage grown, and that's generally going to be sometime in the first to middle part of December before we can turn some cows out on wheat pasture. The best way for adult cows to utilize wheat pasture, I think, is by limit grazing. And by that I mean that we put those cows, say the dry pregnant cows, those that are going to calve in February and March, put them out on the wheat pasture one day and then off onto a native or Bermuda grass pasture, or perhaps around a big round bale for two to perhaps 3 days. We can still get enough protein into those dry cows with just 1 day on the wheat pasture. Now, by 1 day, I don't mean the full 24 hours. Generally, they can get their entire fill of wheat pasture in 3 to 5 hours. If you're watching them and you see those cows after they've been out there that length of time start to lay down, then it's probably a good time to go ahead and move them back off to the dry pasture or around the hay bales. Generally, the water source is going to be in the native or Bermuda grass pasture anyway, and it's not too difficult to move them back to that particular pasture. As to how much wheat we need, generally I use a rule of thumb that with adequate growth, good moisture, and we're limit grazing these cows, 1 acre per adult cow is a pretty good rule of thumb. Now, if you're one of those that likes to leave the cows out on wheat pasture full time, it's probably going to take more acres than that, because there's going to be additional trampling, the laying down, going to mess up some of the wheat, and therefore less of it available for them to actually consume. If you're leaving cows out on wheat for a good portion of the winter months into and through calving, I really want to have you think about the possibility of a condition called grass tetany. Grass tetany is a deficiency of 1 or 2 minerals, magnesium and calcium. Grass tetany generally occurs in older cows right after they calve, when they're giving the most amount of milk. Grass tetany is a situation that if you happen to see that in one of the cows this spring, call your local large animal veterinarian as soon as possible. They can bring out an intravenous injection that contains both magnesium and calcium and can revive the cow actually pretty quickly. I think grass tetany can be prevented in a large number of the cases just by putting out a mineral mix that contains magnesium at about 12 to 15%, and then considerable amount of calcium will also be included in that mineral. You want to start feeding that several months before the cows start to calve, so that they're used to eating it at a tune of about 3 to 4 ounces per head per day. Once we get to calving time, then those lactating cows, if we're still limit grazing the wheat pasture, we probably want to have them on wheat pasture 1 day, off on the dry pasture 1 day, on an every other day basis, so that those lactating cows get more protein and energy out of the wheat pasture. We hope this gives you a little better idea of how to utilize wheat pasture as a supplement for your cows this winter, and perhaps save a few dollars in terms of a purchased supplement to get those cows through the winter in good body condition to have a good chance to rebreed next year. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on Sunup's Cow-Calf Corner.